First, I want to start by welcoming you. Thank you for joining our Schaeferts and Dean Business Builder Speaker Series. We hold these the third Wednesday every month at 10 o'clock for tips and tricks from industry professionals to help you grow your real estate business. The Business Builder Speaker Series was an idea that came out of the COVID days when we couldn't get together in person. And we said, let's get together virtually once a month. We'll bring a speaker on a great topic that we believe is important to real estate agents. We know that you're busy. We appreciate your sharing your time with us. To make the most of your time, we encourage you to ask questions. You can either unmute and ask verbally, or you can just participate utilizing the chat box. And Scott, I'll monitor the chat box for you and let you know as we have questions. We encourage you to connect with us. We're on all the various social medias. Additionally, if you go to our website, schaeferts-dean.com, under the Resources tab, you'll find a link to all of our prior Business Builder videos. That allows you to go back and review ones that you want to refresh and to share them with others that might benefit from the information in our Business Builder videos. Here's, in case you've missed it, these are the first 5 months that we've done this year, each of the speakers and each of the topics that we've covered, and you'll find them in the Resources tab on our website. Mark your calendars. Our third Wednesday next month will be Wednesday, July 15th at 10 a.m. And that will be none other than yours truly, Deeds Done Right, what every realtor needs to know about transfer on death deeds or TOD deeds and all other essential deeds. And I'll be presenting it next month, Wednesday, July 15th at 10 a.m. This month, it is my privilege and honor to introduce to you Scott Trowbridge from Atlanta Basement Systems. Foundation fears to closing cheers. Scott, I'll turn it over to you and let you share your screen. Take it away.
Right, sounds great. See if we get that sharing here. All right, are you able to see?
I see it. I do see it, Scott. Take it away.
Perfect. Let's get started. Well, good morning. I'm Scott Trowbridge with Atlanta Basement Systems. Let's just jump right into it. So you're representing a buyer, and you have spent a significant amount of time with that buyer, showing them lots of properties, and you finally get a home under contract. The deal is going along perfectly until you have a home inspection done. And doing what you do as a realtor, you review the inspection and you find that there are signs of moisture intrusion in the basement, including staining, efflorescence, portions of the foundation walls, and evidence of moisture on the basement floor. And as most of the inspection reports say, recommend further evaluation by a qualified basement waterproofing contractor and repair as needed. So you go through you're in due diligence. You have a limited amount of time there to get this problem resolved. So you call a contractor to come out. They finally make it to the property, and you're wondering, as a buyer's agent, what this contractor is going to say and how is it going to affect your transaction. The contractor walks the property and says, hey, you have water over here, but they're also looking for other work in this corner of the property. And before you know it, you've got an excited buyer that is now leaning more towards maybe some fear and anxiety because of the findings on the inspection report. And in addition to that, this particular salesperson from the foundation repair company is creating pressure. They're trying to upsell create a larger job than what is absolutely necessary. And then the transaction terminates because of all of the emotions involved with this. We see this time and time again. And the problem that was originally identified was water intrusion in the basement. But was that really the real problem? The problem, it was not the wet basement. The problem was fear of the unknown, fear from what the contractor said that maybe was true or not true. There was uncertainty, and that creates some anxiety and not knowing whether or not the buyer is doing the right thing by moving forward with this property. But most of all, it was how the situation was handled. And when you have a contractor that comes out that is not aware of the sensitive nature of a real estate transaction, and they try to upsell and create pressure and use sales tactics and so forth, that's the problem. And it creates transactions to fall apart. And then you got to think about, okay, what is at stake here? Well, how this affects you guys as real estate professionals, your livelihood is on the line here. So if you've got some knucklehead contractor coming out and handling these situations in a way that is not productive, is not lowering emotions, then that puts your commission at risk. You've wasted, you haven't wasted, you've invested a significant amount of time getting that home under contract, showing all these properties and so forth. So now you're basically starting over again. The emotional energy involved with all of that is high, and you've got ups and downs with your emotions now because of this situation. And then it could also negatively affect your reputation rather as a real estate professional, not being able to effectively navigate these situations. And the whole reason behind it, and as an employee of a contractor that does foundation repair, I feel that we have earned this reputation of being maybe overpriced or creating unnecessary pressure, all of these things. And the reason that it happens is because most contractors have salespeople that are 100% commission salespeople. These individuals are trained to upsell, to create an environment where maybe the deficiencies of the property, they want to make them look worse than they are to create urgency and create more value with their products and services. They use high pressure sales tactics, sales techniques. And I find what's interesting too is they try to do a single appointment close, which really doesn't make a lot of sense because oftentimes the buyer is actually at the property and they don't even own it yet, and they're trying to close them on doing the work. So that's simply because they don't understand or they don't care, and all they're interested in is a transaction versus a relationship. So realtors need partners who understand transactions and what's going on with these transactions, to be fully aware of who am I meeting with? Am I meeting with the listing agent? Am I meeting with the seller? Am I meeting with the buyer's agent, or am I meeting with the buyer? All of those people have different motivations. And if you go into a scenario and you don't acknowledge those motivations, then that's when these transactions can fall apart. Your clients, they do not need more fear. What they need simply is clarity. So Our goal today is not to make you guys experts in foundation repair, experts in crawl spaces, basements, foundation and structural problems. But what it is, what the goal is for today is just to give you a general understanding, an idea of what all of these different problems are. So when you see them out in the field, you're like, oh, I've seen this before. I know what's going on. I have a guy who I can trust and that can help me with these problems. And that way you're able to better communicate with your clients out in the field versus not knowing what these issues are and being caught off guard and not knowing how to handle them. So what we'll talk about today, foundation types. It's different types of foundations you need to be aware of. We're going to be looking at basement waterproofing, problems with basements, how water gets in, dehumidification, foundation settlement, foundation wall failure, sagging floors, crawl space issues. And then at the very end, I want to review our real estate response team so you know exactly what that is and how we can help you guys when you're out in the field and you're trying to manage these problems with your clients. All right, so let's get into foundation types. There are three main types of foundations. You've got a basement, which is on the far left here. This is what I'm pointing at here. This is a footing. The footing is a structural component of the home. That footing is poured all the way around the perimeter of that home, and that is providing the structural support for what's built on top of it. The next thing here, from a structural standpoint, is the foundation wall. And then you've got a slab here that is poured last. So this is referred to as a three-part foundation: your footing, your foundation wall, and your slab. Over here, we have a crawl space that has a footing, a foundation wall, but in most cases, crawl spaces are just going to have a dirt floor, and that's more of a two-piece foundation. So the footing and foundation wall. And then when you look at homes that are built on slab, you've got the slab itself, and then this is referred to as a turn-down footing. So the footing and the slab are poured at the very same time, also maybe referred to as a monolithic slab. So three-piece foundation in the basement, two-piece foundation with the crawl space, and then a single pour for the slab home. Are basements better than crawls? Are crawls better than slabs? Are slabs better than basements? They all have their pros and cons. I live in a home that has a basement, and we love our basement. The kids can go down there, and it's nice to have them on a separate level sometimes. So those are the different types of foundations. Let's move on to basement waterproofing and what's involved there. So this is an interesting picture because it's basically a cross section. So this view that we're looking at would be considered the daylight side or the walkout side of the basement. As you look down here, you've got this area right here that was dug out during construction. So the hole for this home was pretty deep and it was pretty wide in order for the workers to get in there and build this. The first thing that they do is they pour the footing around the perimeter. And then after the footing is poured, they build the foundation wall, then they pour the slab. Outside here, next to the footing, is what's called a footing drain. That footing drain goes all the way around the perimeter and it exits on the two daylight corners of the basement, and it's going to empty that clay bowl that your house is built in. So what happens over time, and these systems are, kind of designed to fail. The footing drains are sitting down here in the mud and dirt. You've got this loose backfill area here, which is much easier penetrated by groundwater. So that water works its way down. And then when this footing drain fails, the water builds up on the outside of this foundation wall. And like I said earlier, these are three separate pours. Concrete does not bond to concrete, so the water rises up over the footing, comes in here right where the slab of the floor meets the foundation wall. And we call that a cove joint right there. So this is showing a poured foundation. You do have block foundations, which look like this here. But this is an example of what a footing drain might look like. Over time, silt and debris and so forth work its way into that pipe system. That drain system clogs up, hydrostatic pressure builds outside, and then the water works its way into the basement. And that is the main reason that basements leak, is because of a failed footing drain and the water coming in right here. Now, sometimes foundation walls, they'll have cracks in them, and those cracks can leak, and we can do a polyurethane crack injection to fix that. But again, this slab right here is not structurally part of the home. And the reason that I bring that up is because when we show you how to waterproof a basement, we're going to be creating a trench around the perimeter of the basement on the inside. So let's take a look at that. So this is a product called WaterGuard. This is the installation process. Jackhammer up the slab, create a channel. This gray product here is called WaterGuard. It's got holes in the back. It's a PVC product that's creating a pathway for the water to flow. They added some rinsed gravel, skimmed the concrete back over the top, and then you hardly even know that it's there. The only thing that you're going to see is this flange sticking up right here at the top. What this system does is it captures any water that would come up from underneath the foundation and get into the system. Any water that's coming in from outside that comes underneath the foundation wall will get into this system. And then anything that's coming down from the foundation wall will be covered with a vapor barrier. And that vapor barrier will be tucked into this flange right here, and that will create a closed system. So now we've captured the water, and this system is guaranteed that it's never going to silt up and fail over time like the ones outside do, because it's sitting on top of the footing. The water traveling in this area is significantly cleaner. And this is also serviceable too. You can put an inspection port in there, run a garden hose in there, clean it out. So it's serviceable. So it's guaranteed for the life of the structure that this basement will never leak again. So you can put it down one partial wall, or you can have it going around the entire perimeter of the basement, depending on what the needs are for the client and what their goals are. So WaterGuard's been installed here. This is what a pump would look like. Typically, we try to put those in the low spot or out of the way somewhere, maybe in a mechanical room. We got a pipe that comes from the WaterGuard, dumps into the sump pump liner, and then this is a float switch. So when the water fills up in the bottom of this float switch turns this pump on, and then these are the discharge lines that go up, will go through the foundation wall, go out into the yard somewhere, and you'd pipe that off and have a discharge line outside, just like you would pipe off a downspout and run that away from the house and have all of that water flowing into your neighbor's yard. I'm just kidding when I say that. But that's how you get the water out.
Scott, so essentially what you've done is you've taken the foundation drain, or I've often heard it called a French drain, and you've essentially moved it from the outside to the inside, running around the basement perimeter on the inside instead of the outside. If your foundation drain is clogged or silted, is it possible to just clean it or jet it out or scope it, or is there anything that can be done short of putting the foundation drain on the inside floor?
That's a great question. Those are not serviceable. And if you think about the front of the house, where your front porch is, and that's the foundation wall where you've got at least 8 to 10 feet of soil down there. We have heard companies that, they excavate and they get all the way down there to access that footing drain, remove it and replace it with a new one, but it's extremely expensive. It's very invasive. Companies can't put a warranty on it because they know it's going to silt up and fail again. So it's really a lot easier to do on the interior, significantly less expensive, and it's guaranteed that it won't fail.
Okay.
Yeah. Battery backup pump, and then this is the battery. So if the power goes out during a storm, that's when you need to have your pump working. So that's an option there. This is a picture of a basement that has a water guard system in place, and you can see around the perimeter here where the concrete looks a little bit different. So when you see new concrete or different concrete, maybe 8 to 10 inches away from the foundation wall, that's an indication that there's probably a waterproofing system in place. And then this is what the vapor barrier would look like covering that foundation wall. Now this basement is ready to finish. You can frame up a wall, hang sheetrock, and all of that's behind the scenes. And you can build that wall right over the top of the water guard system. We just ask that you use a construction adhesive to secure the base of that wall instead of a fastener that would penetrate the system. So that's basement waterproofing. Any questions before we go on to the next section? Good. All right. Dehumidification. So with basements that are unfinished, that do not have an HVAC system down there to circulate, dry out, and condition that air, oftentimes those basements will have a musty smell to them, and that can be a real turnoff for prospective buyers. So if you've got a skunky basement, some of that air that is coming into the main living space above is coming from the basement. There's something called the stack effect, where a natural way that a house breathes is from the bottom to the top. So if you've got some musty smells down there, then that could potentially reach the main level. But what I do see a lot, and I've experienced it many, many times, is you go to that basement door, you take those first 3 or 4 steps down, and then you're hit in the face with that musty smell. Oftentimes, the only thing that you would need is to simply put in a dehumidification system to dry out and condition that air. And when you smell that, that's a sign that there are elevated levels of humidity. The relative humidity should be at or below 55% to prevent microbial growth, mold, and those musty smells. So this system here will remove 100 pints per day out of the air. And then it's got a hose that you can either go to a condensation pump to pump the water out, or if you have a sump pump down there, you can discharge the water to the exterior that way. It also filters the air too. So it's drying out the air and it's filtering the air to make it more healthy in the space. So that is a dehumidifier. Foundation settlement. This is probably kind of the scariest area for a lot of agents and also home buyers. They see something on the inspection report where, oh my gosh, there's cracks in the foundation or signs of settlement. And a lot of people will run away from properties that have these deficiencies. And you don't have to. I mean, we see these problems every day. We fix these problems every day, along with the basement issues and so forth. The whole point to understand this is that, if you have these problems, you got to know who to go to, how to fix it. But the point is to lower the emotions and say, hey, let's call somebody in that knows what they're doing. We'll have them take a look at it and explore what the options are. So a settling foundation, that can be caused by a number of different things. You've got excessive wetting of soil, you've got excessive drying of soil, and then improperly compacted fill soil. You've got properties, Metro Atlanta is covered in properties that are not flat. So in order to prepare a lot to build, they're moving a lot of dirt around, and then you've got a lot of fill soil. That fill soil will never be as compact as virgin or undisturbed soil. So when parts of the home are built over fill soil, or you get excessive wetting and the soil becomes unstable and the footing will sink into it. Excessive drying, what happens there? The soil dries out, it contracts, and then it gets cracks in it, and then that's creating movement underneath that house and instability. So when you've got a foundation, a footing that's over unstable soil and things start to shift, eventually that can crack. And that's when you start to see signs of settlement with the floor systems inside, doors and windows that are out of square, that aren't functioning properly, cracks in sheetrock above doors and windows, all these different signs. So there are ways to fix a settling foundation. And what you're doing here is you're transferring the weight from the footing, which is over unstable soil, deep down into the earth to either load-bearing strata or bedrock. Basically putting your home up on top of piers or columns. So there are two different types of piers. Helical piers, which is what you see here. Those are designed for lighter structures. They have a helix, two helix blades on the lead section. Those are driven in like a corkscrew. And those can be used for maybe a single-story home that has siding, which would be considered a lighter structure, or one of those large front stoops that you've got 5 or 6 steps going up to the front of the house, and that's starting to settle and move. You can use helical piers to support that. So here is how helical piers are installed. You got to get access to the footing. Sometimes we hand dig, sometimes we use a little mini excavator. This is the footing right here that they've done. They've chipped away at the footing to get direct access underneath that foundation wall. This lead section has 2 blades on there. Those are being driven in like a corkscrew by this driver head on top of this bobcat that's driving in. As they're driving them, that first section will be at its depth that it needs to. They'll connect another section and bolt those together. And as they're driving them, they're monitoring the hydraulic pressure. Once all the piers are put in place, then they backfill, and then you're good to go. So after it's backfilled, all of those piers are below grade, and you don't even see it. And these are awesome. I love going out on these jobs to watch these installations. Piers will be driven to the depth they need to be driven to. So what I mean by that is when they're driving these helical piers, they're monitoring the hydraulic pressure on the bobcat, and when it reaches a certain pressure, that's when they know that they've reached the depth. Then they'll cut that pier section off to put in the L-shaped bracket, bolt it all on, secure it, and then you can get lift with helical piers and push piers and lift that structure back. But the primary objective with both helical piers and push piers is stabilization. Secondary would be to lift. Any questions on the helical piers? Awesome. All right, so push piers are designed for heavier structures. Helical piers, they screw in, they require a bobcat to drive those in place. Push piers actually utilize the weight of the home to drive these pier sections deep into the earth. Let me show you what that looks like. This is a animation. This is the hydraulic ram. This is a pier section right here. This is the L-shaped bracket that is supporting the foundation. This is the lead section. It has a friction reducing collar on it, creates some space around the pier sections that follow so they can get deep to where they need to go. Similarly, with the helical piers, you need to get access to the footings. Once you remove the dirt and get access to the footings, then you chip away and you get access right underneath there. So they're going to be putting in this jack system here to secure the L-shaped bracket in place. Then they're going to start driving pier sections through this L-shaped bracket into the earth. This is the driver head here, and these are the pier sections. That's a starter sleeve right there. And then that's the lead pier section. So they drive both of those in first. The starter sleeve stays at the top and prevents any bending for any of the other tubes that follow. They all connect together, and then they're driven down, and then they're monitoring the hydraulic pressure on these as those are driven down as well. You can connect all of these together and lift simultaneously. You can see they're achieving lift here. Once they achieve the lift that they wanted, of course, then they backfill, compact that soil, cover it all up, and these are push piers, and then those are a below-grade solution. Both helical piers and push piers have a life of structure transferable warranty when the property is sold, and it's a great solution. So what some contractors will do is let's say in this picture here, that you had settlement in this corner of the structure. And maybe that would require 4 piers to do this side of or this corner of the building. What some contractors might do is say, hey, you're gonna need to pier this entire wall and this entire wall, and they're really giving you more than what you need. So that's kind of where prices get elevated, and it has to do with the scope of work and prescribing more work than what is absolutely necessary. So our approach is to come out, understand the goals of the buyer and seller, help design a solution that's reasonable for both parties. We're not looking to, make a mountain out of a molehill, but we're not trying to, put a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. We're going to make sure that the work is done properly, but we're not going to over-spec jobs, pad quotes, and try to sell big jobs just because, quote, we can. We want to give you just what you need in order to get the work done. Another thing to consider with both push piers and helical piers is something that's referred to as a depth clause. These piers are driven until they either hit load-bearing strata or bedrock. That could be 5 to 10 feet, or it could be 85 feet. So we have a flat fee per pier, and we have no depth clause. So it will be the same price for a pier driven 15 feet as it would be for a pier driven 85 feet. What a depth clause states is that if you drive your pier X number of feet, then every 5 feet after that, for example, it's going to cost you X dollars. And that is an open-ended contract that doesn't work with real estate, and we don't think business should be done that way. So we have a fixed price per pier. All right, very good. So we've talked about piering, and that is related to soil that is underneath the footing. The problem is always the soil, or soil and water combination. So it's not necessarily the house, it's not necessarily how it was built. It's typically a soil and or water problem. So now we're moving from under the house to the foundation wall itself. So let's look at this next photo here, or rendering, and understand that this is a basement block foundation wall. And the problem here, the cause of this issue, the cause of this failure is, well, let me back up. This foundation wall does 2 things. It holds the house up, and it holds the soil back. And if the soil outside here, for some reason, gets a lot of pressure that's pushing laterally on this foundation wall, pushing on it sideways, then that's going to be what's causing this wall to fail. What causes that typically is excessive water problems. This red Georgia clay that we have expands and contracts like bread dough. When it's wet, it expands. When it's dry, it contracts. So remember that picture we showed you earlier, any home that has a basement is built within a clay bowl. So when that clay bowl fills up with water and that footing drain fails, then this water pressure on the outside of this foundation wall increases, and that's what causes foundation walls to fail. You don't need to be an expert on this, but there are 3 stages of wall failure. Stage 1 is just a horizontal crack only. It's just getting started. Stage 2, you got a horizontal crack, and it stair steps as it reaches the corner. And then stage 3, if you look down here at the bottom, the first course of block in this foundation wall is being held in place by the slab. So the courses above that are being pushed in by that pressure from the outside here. And this is what's called shear. That foundation wall is shearing, and that is stage 3. And then stage 4 is when you have a new entrance into your basement. Your foundation wall has completely collapsed, dirt is coming in, and then at that point, what you're going to need to do to fix it is temporarily support the house remove the existing foundation and build a new one. So, point is, catch it when it's at stage 1 and 2, preferably, because problems like these don't get better over time. They don't fix themselves. They only get worse and more expensive over time. So it's best to catch them early and fix them early. Here's an example of a horizontal crack in a block foundation wall. They typically break in the mortar joints, and then as they reach towards the corners of the house, you'll see that they stair step when they reach the corner. So let's get into some of the solutions to fix these issues. Number one, carbon fiber straps, and this is designed for stage 1 and 2 wall failure, so earlier stages of wall failure. Carbon fiber is very, very strong. They make airplanes out of it, cars, and so forth. These carbon fiber straps, basically what they're doing is taking all of these individual blocks right here and creating one single column out of them. How this works is in the basement, they measure the height of the wall, they cut the carbon fiber strap to the appropriate length, they saturate the wall with an epoxy resin, they saturate the carbon fiber strap with an epoxy resin, they apply the strap to the wall, add more resin, and when that dries and sets up, it's extremely, extremely strong. So this is going to prevent this wall from bowing or deflecting anymore, and then these have a life of structure transferable warranty. So those are carbon fiber straps, stage 1, stage 2 wall failure. Power brace systems, you've probably seen these. These are steel I-beams, basically. So at the base, you've got a way to mechanically fasten that to the slab, and then at the top, they're fastened to the floor joist system up above, and then you can see there where you can adjust these to crank them down and get some changing in the wall. So they're installing these. You can see the horizontal crack in the brick facade. They attach them to the floor joist. They attach them to the slab. Those are all bolted into place. And you can crank that down and adjust those. And you can get wall improvement with these. Again, you know, the primary objective is stabilization. And what most homeowners do if they're installing a system like this is they install the system, they frame up a foundation, not a foundation wall, they frame up a wall, hang sheetrock, it's all back behind there, you don't even see it, and just forget about it. Primary objective, stabilization. And then another option are geolock wall anchors. And these are really cool, actually. These are utilizing the earth on the outside of the foundation wall as an anchor to support the foundation wall. So outside in the yard, we'll dig a trench, usually 5 feet deep or so. From the inside of the basement, we'll drill a small hole in the foundation wall, drive that threaded rod through the foundation wall, and it's going to terminate outside into the hole that they dug in the yard. At the end of that threaded rod, they will install that earth anchor, bolt that into place, and then inside the basement on the foundation wall, they'll install this wall plate, and they'll bolt that into place. And they can tighten that down, and basically that bar, that steel rod right there, all of that dirt in between there is creating a tremendous amount of resistance, and you can crank that down and that'll support the wall. Great system when you have the room to do this type of work on the exterior of the home. Sometimes there's obstacles, driveways, or maybe the neighbor's house is too close or something like that. The point is there are options, and each one of these carbon fiber straps, power braces, wall anchors, they're all great. You just got to figure out what makes the most sense for that particular structure, what existing conditions do we have to work with, and what the goals are, you know, for the homeowner. Sometimes these can be used in combination with each other as well. So we've covered basements, we've covered footings that have settled where we use piers to support them from underneath. We've covered foundation walls that are failing, and we've talked about carbon fiber straps, power braces, and wall anchors, and how those can support a foundation wall. Any questions before we move to the next section? All right, let's continue. All right, so smart jack supports. We're going to be moving underneath the house now. These can be used in the basement, but we primarily use these smart jack supports in the crawl space environment. And sometimes you'll see on an inspection report where you've got sagging floors in the home up above in the living space that is above the crawl space. So what causes that are a number of different things. You might have a span that is too wide and the building materials cannot support that span. That's one thing that can cause sagging floors. You can have a excessive moisture problem in your crawl space, and that can cause problems. And then you can have columns like this that have settled or they've been shimmed and the shims have fallen out. So these systems here, these smart jacks, are a permanent solution, and they are also adjustable, so you can get some improvement with the floor system being on level. Here's an example. So they create a footing in place, steel plate. This is the same system or pier section that we're using for the push piers, excuse me. And then this is adjustable, and you can see they will lift that back into place. So we can also use steel in the crawl space for additional supports to support that floor structure if needed. We can also use lumber and wood replacement as well. They're digging footings, they're pouring gravel into the footings, they're going to compact that, they put the metal plate down, they put the plumb bob in place so they know where to put the post, they measure the post, they cut them, they level them, they install them, and it's a great system, and it's very versatile to be able to fix any sagging foundation problems within a crawl space. If we do perform lift, we require somebody to be on the interior of the home to make sure that when they're lifting it, they're not creating any damage on the interior. Again, with all of these, primary objective is stabilization. We can lift if they want to, but most homeowners stick with stabilization. And we're coming up on the last section, and then we'll close, but this is a section on crawl spaces. So crawl spaces for years and years have been built wrong. A dirt vented crawl space is built wrong. And the problems that are associated with a crawl space that is vented to the exterior, especially in the summertime, like we're experiencing now with all the rain and humidity, that moist, wet air is drawn into the crawl space. And instead of creating cross ventilation down there, it's actually elevating the levels of humidity. And then to kind of make that problem worse, if you have a nasty crawl space down here with lots of moisture, potential for mold growth, then with that dark, moist environment, you get insects. Then with the insects, you get rodents. And then with the rodents, you get snakes. You got a whole ecosystem going on down there, a lot of cases. But a lot of the air that you're breathing in the main living area is coming from the crawl space because of that stack effect and the natural way that a house breathes. So to fix that, we recommend sealing everything off and making the crawl space more like it's a finished space. Think of a crawl space as a short basement, because that's really what it is. You wouldn't open your windows in your basement vents. You wouldn't open your windows in the basement in the summer to try to dry out that space. You would close everything up. You would run your HVAC system down there if you have one. If you don't, then you would run a dehumidifier. So let's look at what the proper fix is with crawl spaces. This is what encapsulation looks like. If you have a drainage issue in your crawl space where you have standing water after a rain event, it's recommended to put in a perimeter drainage system, which would be a pipe and gravel type French drain product. And then that would lead to a pump. And then you get the water pumped to the exterior of the crawl space. In this rendering, you see that there is no insulation in the floor system. What was done instead is they put up foam board insulation directly on the foundation wall, and you can leave a gap at the top for inspections for termite activity. Pest control companies like to have that inspection gap at the top. And then you seal the vents, everything's sealed off. You got a drain mat underneath this 20 mil liner. You wrap the columns, and then you put in a dehumidifier to dry out and condition that air. It completely transforms that space down there, makes it usable space, but more importantly, it's more energy efficient because it's not vented to the exterior and it's more of a semi-conditioned space. And the air that you're breathing that's coming upstairs is significantly cleaner, and you're not going to have those musty smells. And now you have to take your shoes off to go into your crawl space instead of putting a cover all in there because of how nasty those places can be down there. Now, what we see mostly with real estate is, putting down a new vapor barrier. If that's all you need to move forward with a transaction, then do just what needs to be done to move forward. Pump system in a crawl space, battery backup. This is the clean space liner. And then they've got the silver glow on the foundation wall. This is the dehumidifier that's drying out and conditioning that air. It's designed for about 1,500 square feet, 80 pints, 100 pints per day of moisture drawn out of the air. You set that to 50% relative humidity, set it and forget it. It drains automatically into a sump pump, and then it's only running when it needs to. So it's keeping that relative humidity right where it needs to be. So, we've covered a bunch of stuff, and it was quick, and it was kind of like drinking from a fire hose, and that's cool. You don't need to be experts in this stuff. The reason that I shared this with you is just so you know who's out there, who can help you, but more importantly, to have a level head about these different problems. Don't run away from them because you don't know how to fix them or you don't know what caused it. Reach out to somebody that you know, like, and trust that can consult with you to guide you through this process. So realtors don't need to be foundation experts. They need a trusted partner to help them through these processes. And that's where I come in. That's where I would love to be able to assist you any way you can, or any way I can, regarding buyers and sellers, coordinating between those two parties and figuring out what makes sense, what's a reasonable solution that can be done, and have this work completed before closing in most cases, move forward to the transaction and get to closing. That is the whole goal of what we're doing. So that is why we created the real estate response team. So I will tell you a story. Back in 2011, I worked for another foundation repair company, and my job there was pretty much the same thing I'm doing here with Atlanta Basement Systems. I taught CE classes to realtors. I facilitated realtor breakfast training, breakfast presentations, lunch and learns, sponsored real estate events, networked a lot, got involved with the local real estate boards. I loved it. I loved what I was doing, but my biggest frustration when I was at that other company was I would get the phone to ring. I would get agents to call and schedule an appointment with us. But what ended up happening is we were blowing the appointments because we were going out, upselling, creating pressure, basically, killing deals. And agents just got fed up and frustrated, understandably, because we weren't handling these things properly. And we felt that was wrong, and that realtors deserve better. So a colleague of mine back in 2011, Patrick Arabia, decided, you know what, Scott, I'm going to take all of the real estate leads and I'll run them, and I'll treat them the way that they should be treated and run them the way that they should be run. And that was the beginning of the real estate response team. And I ended up leaving the company because they decided, you know what, we're no longer going to be pursuing or investing in real estate. Frankly, they didn't like real estate leads. They thought they were a waste of time because they didn't know what they were doing or how to handle them. Uh, Patrick stayed, and he was there still running those real estate leads, and he did that for a while. But ultimately, Patrick was unsuccessful to try to convince that company that these were worthwhile. So he ended up moving to another company. And this is this is what happened. So company one, at first attempt, Patrick, took what he learned, tried the real estate response team. He was passionate about it, and he took that to company two. He had more success there, but as time went by, he still was not getting buy-in from leadership. So Patrick went to a third company, and he held on to this vision, and he said, "This has got to work." And they too they did not buy in fully. And you think about it, in order for this to work, in order for a real estate response team to be successful, the whole company has to buy in. The general manager, the sales manager, the production manager, the call center manager, and all of the sales reps. Everybody's got to be on the same page. And if they're not, they are not going to be able to effectively service the real estate community because you guys have specific needs. And if they're not aware of those needs, they're just going to keep missing the mark. So it wasn't until Patrick Arabia met Larry Janeski that everything changed. Larry is the owner of Contractor Nation. Contractor Nation owns Atlanta Basement Systems, which is here in Alpharetta. Larry and Patrick connected, and after hearing the details of Patrick's vision, Larry was all in. He says, "Yeah, let's go for this. Let's do it." So Larry gave Patrick carte blanche to run with his vision, take the real estate response team not only to the Atlanta market, but to 30 other foundation companies owned by Contractor Nation. And we finally got buy-in from leadership. The real estate response team took off after that. So now, as a result, we are servicing realtors in 30 different markets, and every Monday we're having meetings, and we have 60 guys on that Zoom call discussing how we're able to better work with realtors and give them what they need and make things work. And realtors have been loving it. So over the years, since 2011, when Patrick first started this, Patrick is a very analytical person. And as time progressed, he learned more and more what the priorities were for realtors. You've got specific needs during due diligence, during a transaction. So our promise to you, never a fee. We don't charge for inspections. We have priority scheduling. We understand you're in due diligence and you need us to get out there our goal is to get out there within 24 to 48 hours. You've got due diligence, which is 5-7 days. It goes by quick. So we try to get out there to you as quickly as possible. If you call us on a Friday afternoon, we're probably not going to make it out there on Saturday or Sunday. Our guys do need to take some time off and spend some time with their families. Number 3 here, never a sales pitch. We're not going to come out, have you sit through a lengthy PowerPoint presentation, have everybody gather around a table. I think probably one of the most important ones on here, though, are right-sized solutions. And that comes down to prescribing a scope of work that is sensible, that makes sense for all parties, that's reasonable. And we're not coming out there to over pad or upsell. Our approach is we'll come out, we'll look at the inspection report with you. Hey, what is it on the inspection report that's of concern to you? And that is what we will prescribe a scope of work for. Same day quotes, we'll get this turned around for you quickly. What that means is we'll do the inspection. Our inspector will go back home later that evening or that afternoon, put your proposal together, send it to you in the form of a PDF as an email attachment. You'll get that the same day. Flexible work scheduling. We get the projects installed quicker because oftentimes we're able to get them done before closing, which is great. And then the majority of the work that we're doing has a life of structure warranty, which is oftentimes a big selling point for a buyer. That creates that comfort that they know that they're going to be covered, that peace of mind. They'll be covered for the life of the structure. And then we do also have a preferred agent program, and we'll just review that real quick and then I'll close. Preferred agent program, it's really easy to do. So after your first inspection with us, you can get the contact information of the inspector that visited the property. So from that point forward, you can contact that inspector directly and you will bypass our call center. And when you do that, that can get you even more flexibility with scheduling and getting somebody out there quicker. Experienced and successful agents, listing agents, do a pre-listing inspection to get that property ready to sell, ready for market. And we provide a free pre-listing inspection to our preferred agents. And what that means is one of two things. We can do it where we come out, we leave the clipboard in the car, we just walk the property, have a conversation, and say things like, hey, you know what, this may come up on the inspection report. Do with that information what you will. Or we can do a thorough inspection, put together a proposal, providing you with the scope of work and the cost to get the work done. And then you can do with that what you wish to do. So two options for the pre-listing inspection. And then this is the big one. This is what most agents love. It's a additional way for work to be done and for people to be able to pay for this work. We have a pay at close option. And we've seen this on occasion where the property be on the market, goes under contract, it terminates, and they're like, oh gosh, I do need to fix this. But the scenario is they don't have the funds readily available, or they don't have the cash available. So what can be done is a pay at close option where we sign a pay at close agreement. We schedule the work to be done 1 week before closing. The work is done. You go to closing. We get paid for the work at closing, just like you guys get paid at closing. And everything works out. It's great. So it's a great solution and another way to let you know that we're thinking about you. We're putting systems in place to help make things easier for realtors to overcome these different problems, lower the emotions, and ultimately get to the closing table. So that's all I got. My name is Scott Trowbridge with Atlanta Basement Systems. My contact information is up there, 678-684-8064. Call me anytime, text me. You can FaceTime with me for an inspection remotely. We got options. And then I'll introduce you to one of our inspectors, get your free inspection done. And then from that point, the two of you can take it from there to move forward with future deals. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for being our guest today and for sharing your information. I'll throw it open to the floor for any questions. Anyone have any questions they'd like to ask Scott about the material we covered today? If I don't see one, I'll throw one out. And Scott, I hate to put you on the spot, but everybody's first question is, I see there are a lot of remedies available, but what is the cost? And what I wanted to throw out is tell me about a recent success story where you were able to help remedy a problem, yet it was on sort of the lower end of the price, the gamut of price, range of price.
Sure.
Um,
So I had one yesterday actually, and the listing agent called me because there was a crack in the board foundation wall in the corner, and it was right where the it's called the garage box. So up above is where the garage is, and in the basement you can see where the garage is up above. So there was a crack there, and it was most likely done during construction. So the buyer was concerned, the buyer's agent was concerned. So the listing agent had the buyer's agent call me, and we looked through the pictures, we looked at the diagram, we talked about the engineering report, and um, then the buyer's agent got the buyer conferenced in as well. And we were all just having a great conversation about this. And it's funny, uh, this transaction is going forward. Due diligence was up this morning. And, I had said to them that this problem has been there forever. There's no signs of a structural failure. It's a crack which was probably caused during construction when they were backfilling it with the Bobcat. And my recommendation was, if it was my property, that I wouldn't do any work, that I would move in. And if you wanted to do some work, then you could put carbon fiber straps to wrap that corner horizontally just to add some extra support and maybe some peace of mind. But I think that is one of the situations where another company would have gone out and, I don't know, maybe quoted power braces down that entire wall, or tried to sell a big job, and it really didn't need anything. So I think when you had talked about, Doug, about prices, we're open with prices. We're not hiding any pricing. That with basement waterproofing, it's based on lineal feet, and we can let you know that. With piering, it's based on the number of piers. The wall systems, it's based on the number of products that you put up. I think the biggest point, the biggest takeaway here is doing only the work that needs to be done, not to go in and try to upsell and make a big job. If we can put in three helical piers around the corner of a property, and that's going to do the trick, let's do that, versus another company coming in and wrapping the entire back of that property and creating a $20,000 job when it could ideally be a $6,000 or $7,000 job.
Terrific. Thank you, Scott.
My pleasure.
Before we go ahead and break, anyone else have any other questions?
Hello, Scott.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't make sure you guys can hear me. Hey, my name's Tony. Great information today on this here. I just got a quick question, kind of like it was more towards like with not so much with the pricing, but let's say if it's not a deal, if we're so much doing that closing, but let's just say if we got a client that already closed 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and they say, hey, can you recommend anybody? As far as like when it comes, do you guys actually do like financing too, or things like that, as far as for paying for the job, or how would that work?
Yes, sir. Great question. So, if we have a relationship and we've done work together in the past, and you've got somebody else that you want to refer us to, it doesn't have to be something that's involved with the real estate transaction for us to help them.
Mm-hmm.
And regarding financing, we do have different financing options. There are probably 3 or 4 different options to choose from. And I don't know a lot of details on that because I'm not one of the guys that goes out to do the inspections and provides quotes.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, sir, we do offer financing, and you do not have to be involved in a real estate transaction. What I would recommend, though, is you call us, because we do have 2 sides to our business. Our approach is a little bit different than those folks that are doing the business to consumer
Mm-hmm.
inspections. So our inspections, I would refer to this as more of a business to business relationship, and we operate just a little bit differently.
Gotcha. But if a person does have a deal where they are closing, what you guys can bill out of closing. So if you got an investor that's flipping and they need to get this fixed, as long as they're you'll get it done a week before closing, and then they can pay for that out of the deal. Correct?
Yes, sir. But the one caveat, the property does need to be under contract.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Right. That's why I said a week before closing, you guys would do the stuff.
Yeah. And then if for some reason your closing is delayed, just let us know. We'll delay our install date as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we can keep those lines of communication open and work around that.
Gotcha. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right. Scott, I want to thank you again for being our guest today. We appreciate you and the information that you presented to our listeners today. In conclusion, I thank you all for joining us today. I trust you've walked away with some good information so that you can better serve your clients when you're dealing with foundation and water issues, whether it's a slab, a crawl, or a basement, that you've learned a little more information about how they're constructed, different failure points, and different ways those problems can be remedied, and that you've met somebody who is an expert in the field who can provide you some good guidance. So thanks for joining us today. I want to wish you all a lot of success in your real estate transactions going forward. If you need help, feel free to reach out to Scott Trowbridge at Atlanta Basement Systems or to me, Doug Dean at Shafritz and Dean. Thanks again for joining us. Take care and have a great day.